Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee. For the record, my name is Ross Fitzgerald, R-O-S-S-F-I-T-Z-G-E-R-A-L-D, House District 17, Teton, Ponderay, and a touch of Lewis and Clark County. Today I bring before you House Bill 738. It really is a short bill. It has to do with the Montana wheat and barley research and marketing checkoff program. They're asking for some flexibility in their procurement program, but giving you a little perspective and history. The group had started back in the 60s as a marketing and research group made up of a board of agricultural producers from around the state, divided by districts. And they've done an exemplary job on they've collected the farmer checkoff system off of wheat and barley by the bushel, and over the years has done a great service for research and marketing of our grains here in Montana, both in yield and price. And so with that, I'll leave the details to the folks and appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, is there any proponents?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name for the record is Nathan Kane, K-E-A-N-E. I am the president of Montana Grain Growers Association. I also am a producer in Loma, Montana. This bill simply removes the unnecessary involvement of the Department of Administration approval, where in the case the Wheat and Barley Committee provides adequate oversight of the funds under their control. Grain growers ask that you say yes to HB 738. Thank you for your time.
Okay, is there any other proponents in the room?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, once again, for the record, my name is Dylan Davidson, D-A-V-I-D, representing Montana Farm Bureau Federation, and in offering our support of this bill.
Thank you. Any other proponents in the room? None. I don't see any online. Mr. Nelson?
No online testimony for this bill, Mr. Chair.
Okay, is there any opponents in the room? Seeing none, I don't see any opponents online. Is there, Mr. Nelson?
No opponents online, Mr. Chair.
Okay, informational witnesses.
Chair, members of the committee, my name is Zach Coccoli, C-O-C-C-O-L-I, Deputy Director, Montana Department of Agriculture. Happy to answer any questions. Also with me is Chief Legal from the Department of Agriculture, Court Jensen.
Thank you. Any other informational witnesses in the room? Seeing none. I see none online. Okay. We'll open it up to questions from the committee. Vice Chair Fern.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Maybe for Mr. Coccoli. Mr. Chair, Mr. Coccoli, could you get in a little more detail about what an example of how this change in the procurement of goods and services would work within this policy?
Chair, Vice Chair Fern. Currently, the process for purchases over $100,000 is a public notice through a request for procurement. These are handled by the Department of Administration, and they have all of the rules and policies in place that control the procedures for posting a request for procurement or an invitation for bid, ensuring that it's subject to adequate public notice and participation so that there's competitive bidding allowed. This bill would exempt the Wheat and Barley Committee from those steps and allow them to vet possible hiring options themselves.
Thank you.
Representative Sullivan, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, for Mr. Coccoli as well. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Coley, my question follows up on that. How many, I mean, you're saying for over $100,000, those rules apply. I'm just curious about how much the Montana Wheat and Barley group that we're talking about here is making purchases over 100,000, and for those that are under, what does that look like, Mr. Chair?
Chair, Representative Sullivan. In the last 7 years, the Wheat and Barley Committee has entered into 2 contracts totaling total value over $100,000. One to hire a specialized barley consultant, and one to hire a third-party IT consultant to help with their private website. So it's $100,000 over the full contract term of 7 years. For other purchases from $10,000 to $100,000, what's required, what the department requires of the Wheat and Barley Committee is that they identify 3 quotes, so that to ensure they've shopped around, and then it's within their discretion to select one of those 3 quotes.
Follow-up?
Last follow-up is that this bill is taking them out of all of those procedures, right? Not just the over 100,000, but I just want to understand what we're doing.
So, Chair, Representative Sullivan, yes, this bill technically exempts them from the entire Montana Procurement Act, which promulgates rules through the Department of Administration, but they would still be subject to the internal control policies of the Department of Agriculture, which largely reflect the Department of Administration. The bill allows for the committee to craft rules on how they'll handle procurement, and we would advise and encourage them to make sure those rules allowed for adequate oversight.
Vice Chair Fern, you got a question?
I do. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Mr. Kikoli. So, one simple word, why?
Chair, Vice Chair, it's not a department bill, and I will defer to the sponsor for that. I don't want to speculate.
Redirect?
I could redirect if the good sponsor is, or Nathan Keene, either one.
Keene. Grand Gorge, yeah.
Mr. Chair, Vice Chair Fern, sorry, can you repeat the question?
The question was, Mr. Chair, thank you, was why is this a request? You've done a very good job explaining what it will do, but what is driving the need for change? Mr.
Chair, Vice Chair Fern, the reason why is the monies here is like Representative Ross said, that the monies is checkoff dollars, is growers' funds. And so it's a way of having the growers' funds go to growers, make it more efficient, I guess, and cut out the red tape so the growers' funds can be pushed to represent the research and the market development that we are going for with our checkoff dollars. So it just makes it a more efficient route to use those funds instead of that red tape that has to go through currently. Yeah.
Representative Kmetz.
Mr. Chair, a couple questions for Mr. Candy. Did I do your name justice?
Kane?
Kane. Was it Kane? Mr. Kane.
Mr. Chair, Representative, sorry, Kmetz.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Kane, is the checkoff, is it voluntary?
Mr. Chair, Representative Kmetz, it is voluntary system, so it's a mandatory collection, and so the elevators are typically the ones that are collecting it, and they're bringing it goes through the Wheat and Barley Committee and then to the department. But any grower can request a refund as long as that they can provide some documentation that they had the assessment taken out.
And follow-up?
Follow-up.
How much per bushel?
So Mr. Chair, Representative Kometz, so currently it was just raised, and for wheat, we are at a ½ cent per bushel, and for barley, we are at a ½ cent per 100.
One last follow-up.
Follow-up.
Mr. Kane, so what is the total gross receipts of the checkoff program annually?
So, Mr. Chair, Representative Kometz, that varies from year to year because it's also based on production, right? I don't know for sure the figures for 2022, and we still have grain coming in, but it's anywhere from $3 to $4.5 million, give or take. Yeah.
Thank you.
Further questions from the committee? Representative Walsh.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, question for Mr. Kane again. I wasn't quick enough to get you.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, Representative Walsh.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Kane. So we have $3 or $4 million in the Department of Ag said that they only had two bills or two contracts or whatever expenditures, one-time expenditures over 100,000, and that was over a 7-year period. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, Representative Welsh, I couldn't answer that question. I could defer to one of the witnesses on that, though, Zach.
Sure. Yeah.
Chair, Representative Walsh, that is correct.
So even though you follow up, Mr. Chair. Yeah, even though there's a pretty big budget, it looks like it's in pretty small increments that you go out and procure whatever it is that you procure. So probably the Procurement Act works fairly well, or is it really a bottleneck?
So, Chair, Representative Walsh, procurement for goods and services is not the primary purpose of the committee. The primary purpose of the Wheat and Barley Committee is to award research, marketing, and grower education grants.
Okay.
That's where they spend $4 million per year. The purchasing of goods and services is a small ancillary part of their operations. The grants are not subject to the Procurement Act.
Okay. I was just trying to get back to the original question, why? So, yeah. Thank you.
Are you good now, Mr. Walsh?
Yeah.
All right. Any further questions? Representative Sullivan.
I think everyone's going to want to know this question, Mr. Chair. Mr. Kokoli, please, or Mr. Kane. Kane.
You got it, Kane.
Sir, my question is just as we are sitting here, if someone who is participating in the program wanted to know how money was being spent, is that a process that's transparent? People could ask and find out, if we're no longer under the procurement rules, folks that felt inclined to wonder who were partaking could learn how things are being done. That's what I'm wondering.
Mr. Chair, Representative Sullivan, yeah, absolutely. That is the thing, and if I can follow up on that why question, I guess it might clarify a little better.
Yeah, that'll be okay. Everybody wants to know why. So.
Really, again, the why thing, like Mr. Kokoli mentioned, the procurement is a small part of the budget. A lot of it does go to research and development and such. And really, it's just to make it, it's a small office, a team of 5 people, and it's just to make it a more efficiently run office that, they can use their funds quickly, they can make decisions quicker and cut through that red tape. And so it is a small part of that budget, that procurement part of it. But it will speed things up. And so we're just looking for ways to cut the red tape to make things more efficient for that office. And so that's what the reason for this HB 738 is. But as far as being an open book and what is being spent on that, so that can be, that is something that any grower can give a call to the Wheat and Barley Committee, and it is funds that they, provided for that, so that is some information that they can find out, yes.
All right, further questions? Oh, Representative Dooling.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For Mr. Kokoli, please. Mr. Chair, Mr. Kokoli, I guess, I don't know, maybe I wasn't paying attention or I'm just got medicine head, I don't know. But if this is the grain growers' checkoff money, why is it being monitored by the Procurement Act? If this is their money, why are we having oversight of it in the first place?
Chair, Representative Dooling, the Montana Wheat and Barley Committee is administratively attached to the Montana Department of Agriculture. Their board members are appointed by the governor. That relationship implicates the full scope of state laws.
All right. Further questions? All right, seeing none. Representative Fitzgerald, would you like to close on your bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee, for the good questions. Like I say, this is all under the auspices and umbrella of the Department of Agriculture when it was began in 1967. And over the years, of course, farmers being the independent souls that they are, like to have a little more. My father was on it at one time, so like to get things done. And this is just one little step that they're asking for to take care of the minutia within the office equipment, et cetera, et cetera. So with that, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, would appreciate a yes vote.
House Bill 738. All right, committee.
A yes vote.
House Bill 738.